I've started to go deliberately slow. Like I used to be. I mean, sometimes I still do. I want to do it in one session, but it adds like this, just this weight to your chest. That like everything's, you got to be fast. You got to quickly dry your brush. You got to quickly like scrape your palette down so you have room for some clean sky color. So now I've started like almost deliberately just having no deadline. So I just go slower and enjoy myself.
Welcome to the Creative Endeavor Podcast. This is the podcast bringing you inspiring stories from creative professionals from around the world. My name's Andrew Tischler. Thank you so much for tuning in and joining me here in the studio. In this conversation, I'm talking to Nicholas O'Leary, who's a New Zealand-born artist based in Bergen in Norway, of all places. He's been living there since 2009, and the Norwegian landscape has fueled him and inspired him to create some incredible landscape paintings. Nicholas's work is difficult to explain, but I'll do my best. I just love the way he paints. I've been following him on social media for many years. Every time I look at one of his paintings, I just marvel and ask myself, like, how the heck did he do this? His shapes are beautiful. His colors are clean. His line work is absolutely exquisite. Nicholas started off and got his training as an architect, but always had a passion for painting. And he creates some beautiful studio work and plein air pieces as well. I wanted to dive deep into the art. What inspires and drives Nicholas? And what is some of the thought process behind some of these amazing works that has been spanning over well over a decade? This was a fantastic conversation. So much technical information here as well to get your teeth into. Before we get stuck into this episode, though, just a quick word from our sponsor, Rosemary & Co. Brushes. Have you ever felt like your brushes were holding you back? I certainly did, until I switched to Rosemary & Co. Now, one of the biggest issues that I was having with brushes back in the day when I was first starting was consistency. You know, sometimes I just couldn't get enough of the one brush that I finally found that I really liked. And then when I'd go to buy another and replace one that maybe got worn out, it just wouldn't be the same as the last one that I had used. Consistent quality is something that I'm looking for. And when I say quality, I mean quality. You gotta know that the bristles aren't gonna fall out all over the place and that it's gonna get the job done. Now, I wasn't prepared for what was gonna happen when I switched over to Rosemary & Co. brushes. They actually opened me up to a whole new world of techniques that I wouldn't have previously explored. And then I worked out very quickly why they are the gold standard of artist brushes. These are second to none. Rosemary & Co. make the very best artist brushes in the world. Now, I'm primarily an oil painter, but they also make brushes for watercolor artists and acrylic painters as well. Now, find out what the pros are raving about. Visit www.rosemaryandco.com. That's rosemaryandco.com, and check out why they have been the best in the business for the last 40 years. If it's worth painting, it's worth having a great quality brush. I'm certainly a big believer in that, and I'm only going to promote the stuff that I actually use here in the studio. So get the brushes that your art truly deserve. Visit rosemaryandco.com. And just one more thing before we get stuck into this episode of The Creative Endeavor, you can find the full exclusive video version over on Tisch Academy. Visit tisch.academy, that's TISCH.academy. You'll find that link in the description. All right, let's jump straight into it. Here's Nicholas O'Leary and The Creative Endeavor. Nicholas, welcome to the Creative Endeavor Podcast. Absolute pleasure to have you here. Where are you coming to us from? Because you're a Kiwi, but you're living abroad.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Andrew. I'm in Bergen, which is in Norway. So we have lots of fjords as well here, just like I've seen you painting. And yeah, and I know it's the morning for you and it's the evening for me. And it's
It's late in
perfectly
the evening.
aligned. It's perfectly aligned, 12 hours with daylight saving ticking over. So it's actually quite convenient.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Yeah.
What brings a New Zealander to Norway?
Well, I left after I studied architecture, so I left after architecture school.
Mhm.
There was a company that flew me over here, and back then, what was that 2009? That was quite an adventure actually. Airfares were really expensive back then. Like I know everyone else who wanted to do the OE, this overseas experience, you'd be saving up for sort of a year at that time to get overseas. So it was an adventure, and I just haven't managed to get myself together to move back probably. But I do like it here. Yeah.
Wonderful. I mean, the landscape there that you're painting seems unreal. It's just so cool. Some of these plein airs are phenomenal. I'm excited actually today in this episode to geek out about the process. Though some of your reels, bro, I'm not gonna lie, kind of frustrate me because I was watching this one going, finally, he's going to tell us how he does what he does. And you're like, I'm just going to mix up a little bit of tree color here and put it on the trunk where the tree color goes. And I was like, oh, come on, man. Very funny. Like, yeah, very, very funny. But I was like, oh, come on. I want some information. So, look, kick us off anywhere you want to start. But I'm really dying to know like a bit more about this story. What stands out for you as one of your earliest memories of when you first fell in love with art?
I know like when I was 8, I don't know, 8 or something. We had when did you move to New Zealand actually?
Well, originally in 1989, and then left
Okay.
in 1992, and then I came back. So I'd been married to my wife, who's from the North Island.
Yeah.
And we got married over in Australia, and then I moved back in 2017, and been here since 2017.
Okay. Nice. Well, then you'd remember they used to have like a competition to design the telephone book cover when they still had telephone books.
Right. Oh, yeah, 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 yeah.
So I
Very
remember
cool.
when I was 8, I um I entered a picture into that, which I thought was amazing. Um, and then I was already planning how I was going to spend the $200, which was the prize. Even while I was doing it, I was just so confident. I mean, looking back on it, it's so bad. It's done in watercolor pencils and like smudged around with spit, I think. But but yeah, I was sort of into it. We'd always sort of just done it as kids, and then throughout school, I guess. And in high school, I
Mhm,
was particularly interested in it.
mhm.
There was a few guys in my class that were pretty good, and that I'd sort of looked up to, and they taught me all these little tricks and stuff. And
Wow.
yeah, it just kind of went from there. And then I've always, even through architecture school, and then I just always just kept doing it always. And I'd always been exhibiting and selling stuff, and yeah, keeping it going through all the years. The perseverance, I think, is probably um, the main attribute that's that's pushed me so far.
Very good. Very good. So architecture was this, so this was like obviously your chosen profession that you were wanting to go into. And so the art was just kind of sitting there in the sidelines, I'm hearing a little bit. Is it now your full-time thing, the art?
I still do a bit of design stuff as well.
Hmm.
I do. It's mainly so that I can do what I want with the art, that I don't have to do stuff that anybody likes. I don't. I know every time I sort of start to paint a bit more, like you do get influenced by what people like on social media, You
Mhm.
suddenly see you post something and you lose a huge chunk of your followers. Uh, I've tried to make myself not pay attention to that and just do what I think is what I think is fun for me, and then that sort of that safety net of having some other income when I need it is
Mhm.
allows me to just be completely selfish. Actually, yeah.
I've got to drill into that a little more. Like, give me an example of something you posted that lost you followers.
Or the life drawing, like the life drawings, people
Really?
don't like them. This big horse that I did, I got lots of people saying it was AI, which was just heartbreaking, to be honest. That's probably the most heartbroken by followers I've ever been.
Let me share my screen here. I've got your website pulled up. So are we talking about this painting here?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, it's kind of neat. I'm not gonna lie. I didn't want to assume, but I was like, is he using AI? But okay, so I'm hearing you didn't.
No, no.
Excellent. Excellent. We can hang out totally. But no, I mean, even if you did, I would really want to kind of explore that a little bit as I do in a lot of these recent episodes because it's just a huge thing, right? But tell me about this painting. What inspired this? It's such an interesting composition. I love the rock wall, the colors, your choice of color. Your color's out of this world, man. Like you choose really interesting arrangements, and it's so for me. I'd never think to use that. I'd never think to use that pink or those reds or the combination of the crimson and the grays. It totally works, but it's just I look at it and it's like so fresh. So tell me about this painting. Like what inspired Idol, 145 by 180 centimeters? Man, it's a monster, dude. It's a monster. Wow.
It's a big horse.
Yeah, man.
Um, no, that was a commission. So a client came and they were into horses and they had a new house that had lots of pink and yeah, blah 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 blah, and then lots of did some sketches about it, and then eventually landed on this, and then just sort of yeah did it. I guess it was like because usually I wouldn't sketch things ever really. So for this, I did have a sketch.
Mhm.
Um, so then it felt very straightforward doing the painting. To be honest, if I have a sketch, it felt like actually boring almost doing the painting.
I can relate to that. I do find that it does help me in creating some sense of plan. It gives me a little bit of that forward momentum. But yeah, sometimes it does feel a bit tedious. It's like, oh, I've kind of already done this. But I try to look at it as a way of kind of saving some abortive work down the track. But I I I, I'm struck by the title of this thing. Um, what does this mean for you? This painting. Do you mind me asking? I mean, is that a little bit cringy asking an artist what's it all mean?
Yeah, but I won't tell you. I already
Wow.
know that I never tell people. I've done like my best to leave it as open as possible. So I always remove bits that uh, make it. If there's too many signs that point to like a single interpretation,
Hmm.
then I'll remove them. But I often feel like other people, when it's more open, other people come with much better interpretations than my interpretation. So it's like as a way to make it relate to more people.
Hmm.
So if I put like for example um, a woman with a Gucci handbag standing in the front there,
Hmm.
and that I don't really know anybody who goes around with a Gucci handbag, you're sort of eliminating me from the audience. Like, it's like one of those luxury people that goes to five-star hotels, for example.
Hmm.
So if I just
Hmm.
remove all the things that people feel they're excluded from, then it can hit a lot more people. Is my theory, and
But
it also leads people like you to like wonder. more. Of course, you don't feel smart because you won't figure it perfectly out.
Oh, that's fine. Like I like really I do like kind of teasing something out for within the meaning. I think yeah, because we all do that anyway, don't we? We bring our own story to the piece. And if there's a little bit of an adventure there that we can go on, if there's the right visual cues or the wrong visual cues, whatever, there's visual cues there. We're going to bring to it whatever's within us. I'm looking at this from a particular point of view. Your use of color really interesting, but the fact that it's called idol, I kind of look at this through maybe a little bit of a Christian lens in a way. With idols, idolatry, and all this, you have these people that are so small in the composition. We're looking at it from that perspective of the horse, but you're looking down on all these people, and they're going to this place that ends up going nowhere. And it feels like it goes nowhere because the horse's head, which we can't see, is kind of buried behind this rock pillar. It feels like they're engaged in something that's really silly, but
There you go.
grand
I've
at the
captured
same
the
grand at the same
I've
time.
I've captured the whole Christian community by
Not the whole, just
yeah,
this one.
leaving it open. Yeah.
That's cool, man. But
No, but
I
I think as well, like, when you see the news now, everybody comes up with a conspiracy theory, and it
yeah,
is very entertaining. I think it's good. Yeah.
far out. Yeah, and they're just getting thicker and thicker and thicker conspiracies, aren't they? Um, I mean, like as in more of them, as in uh, the viscosity of it. It's getting yeah. Anyway, wrong use of the word thicker there. That's not what I meant. Because I'm really painting myself with that brush because I tend to verge on the conspiracy side of things sometimes, and I really don't want to describe myself as thick. Anyway, we'll keep moving on.
But they are fun though. Yeah, they are very creative interpretations of the facts, which I
Oh,
like.
ah,
I'm very impressed by them
fantastic.
always.
Well, we got a little bit conspiratorial recently on the podcast with Mr. Justin Bua. Um, and we were talking about how modern art is, some aspects of it, characters like Pollock were on the CIA payroll, and that's a fact. And like, so a conspiracy is when like two or more people are gathered together and they are conspiring to achieve some aim that for good, bad, or otherwise, like people got together and conspired to build this building that I'm talking to you in at the moment. So I guess you know it's interesting. It just depends on the angle that you're approaching it from, I suppose. But
Yeah.
they are good fun and they can be addictive and they can be a complete waste of time. But anyway, look, I think this is something here, Nicholas, that I've been wondering for some time, having looked at your reels, looked at your work, and just looking at the way you paint. Now, I don't mean to gush, bro, but like looking at the way, just looking at it, going, how, how are you doing this? You make plein air painting look like it was digital, and I mean that in the best possible way. I paint digitally, right? The color is so clean, the shapes are so good, your line work is just second to none. You're it's a weird way of painting. It's a really weird way of painting. What I mean, obviously this is a result of years and years and years of dedication and practice, but what do you think the architecture? I'm curious if maybe the architecture and architectural drafting is something that might have inspired your painting process.
Yeah. I mean, I've heard that a lot from people that they're always like, it's graphic, your art's so graphic. You have no soft edges. But I know that the definite thing that is like if you see the drawings, it will be very obvious is that I always like hatch perpendicular to the direction of like what you'd think the brushstroke should be. Like what would be the most efficient way to fill in the shape.
Oh
So
yeah.
I'd always hatch in the opposite way, which
Yeah,
is what they do in architecture. So you sort of like emphasize the line. So yeah, so like I'd hold the arm instead of going up the arm, which you'd save a lot of strokes.
right on.
I'd always do it across. But I do that in painting as well. Like every time I fill in, I'd always fill it in the wrong way, just because I think it looks better filling it in the wrong way. But I know that is the way that architecture school taught you to do it.
Wow. This drawing is just so brilliant. Absolutely love this. I'm looking right now at a piece that you did called IKEA pens. Is it IKEA or IKEA pens? Is that the title? IKEA
Oh,
pens?
I don't know what it's called. I did it with IKEA pens,
Okay, cool.
just
Awesome.
like the children's pens from IKEA. They're really good, actually.
No kidding. Look what you can do
I'm
with
not
them.
sponsored though,
Oh.
so I'm not sponsored, so I won't go on about them. But
But that is absolutely brilliant. Wow. Right.
thank
Okay.
you.
So that kind of makes sense. This so working across the line. Okay.
Would you? Yeah, you'd see it in that grey tree you just had. I think
Hmm.
it also allows you to describe. It just allows you to describe the form a little bit better. I mean, I
Hmm.
think people are better at it than me. Some people, they do it if they were doing an arm, for example, they wouldn't just go straight across. They'd go like around to describe the form, sort of like you're drawing a cylinder. But I can't do that. I mean, I probably could, but I can't do it fast or naturally. I have to slow down.
But when I look at your work, especially some of the reels, I get the impression that they're that these are pretty quick. These paintings. You probably get asked this a million times, but let's look at this painting called Roots in, oh my goodness, I'm not even going to pronounce that. Nygaard Sparken,
Yeah,
110 by 70 centimeters. How did I do on my pronunciation?
I mean,
Terrible.
I know the one you're talking about.
You know what I'm talking
Yeah,
about. Okay, but I
yeah.
butchered it, right? So how long would a painting like that take you?
I think I went back 3 or 4 times. I mean, it's just across the road, this park from me.
Oh, wow. Wow.
So, but the problem is here we have lots of diverse weather.
Mhm.
So you can't really rely on going back the next day at like 10 a.m. I did this one. It was like at 10 a.m. I want to be there. The next day it'll be raining, and the next day it'll be sunny, and I'm like, oh, especially when it's like springtime and the leaves are going to be coming soon. Like, you're just not even getting it. I got to get overcast without rain. So it ends
Wow.
up taking me a few weeks just to get to paint 3 or 4 4-hour sessions.
Right. So we're looking at around um 12 to 16 hours for a painting like that. Not bad.
But I've started to go deliberately slow. Like I used to be, I mean, sometimes I still do. I want to do it in one session,
Hmm.
but it adds like this weight to your chest that like everything's, you got to be fast. You got to quickly dry your brush. You got to quickly like scrape your palette down so you have room for some clean sky color. So now I started like almost deliberately just having no deadline. So I just go slower and enjoy myself. And then it allows me to just sort of s- screw around a bit more on it and not, yeah, I feel like it just takes a burden off. I don't know why the burden was there to get it done in one sitting in the first place, but it always did seem to be there, that was the pure way to do it.
Do you know, and again, I mean this in the best possible way. I'm looking at a painting right now. Oh goodness, I'm not going to be able to pronounce this. Uh Kolfjellet, Lofoten
Oh,
Islands.
Kolfjalla. Yeah.
Wait, one more time. What?
Is it Kolfjalla? Probably.
Sure. Let's go with what
Yeah,
you said.
Lofoten.
Loved it.
Yeah.
I've always wanted to go there. I've always wanted to go to those islands, man. That sounds yeah, it looks absolutely insane. This painting looks like you took a photo and you ran it through a digital filter. It's incredible. For the people just listening to the audio version of the podcast, we're going to have obviously all of these visuals cut into the video version of the podcast, so you'll be able to see exactly the painting that we're talking about. But again, I'm seeing that sharpness in the edges, but it doesn't flatten it. In fact, if anything, man, like this brings out such a three dimensionality in that image. It's incredible. So, in terms of process, like, what's the first thing that you're laying in there when you show up to Give me as little or as much detail as you want, but I just want to geek out on the painting side of things. But what's your first approach? You got this thing, like, what are you even looking for? Like your shape designs and the views that you choose to think, like to paint. I would never think to focus there, like but it totally works. Your approach, like, what is it that you're looking for in shape and maybe contrast and color, and then what's your first line of attack there?
The things I'm looking for are the things usually that I feel are overlooked by everybody else. Because especially like in Lofoten on this trip, there's a lot of tourists that are there that are nature enthusiasts. So basically, every person that walks past you has a big DSLR camera,
Hmm.
and lots of them are focused on me. Actually, people would come a remarkable distance from the road to get to me, standing in nature. But it would be like it seems a bit like when you go to a place like that. I felt a bit. If I was going to paint the very iconic scenes, it felt a bit. It felt a bit like I was cheating too much.
Hmm.
That it was like, oh, it was almost going to be kitschy. Is what I was thinking. That it was just so epic that I was like, I'm gonna do the stuff like on this that cold fjell. I know that I liked this the way these marks from the water running down it, these like stripes.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah.
That was what stopped me. And I was like, it shouldn't be a very good painting because it's on the north side in the northern hemisphere. That's like the dark side. So the sun never really got around there. It was like a bit flat. So I'd sort of just didn't have much kick to it when everything's sort of in the shadow side. There's not even any sort of subtle light coming from the left or the right.
Mm.
So it just sort of needed a bit, like the way you're saying how it all looks very sharp or filtered or something. It was me just trying to like crank it up a bit so that it was a sort of a bit more striking without um, being untrue to the subject.
It shouldn't work, but it does. Yeah, really, like, and again, I would never think, I'd never think to paint that, but it totally works, man. So you're painting quite large. Again, would this have been a piece that you would be spending multiple days? You'd set up and just, chip away, or is this a one sitting thing?
There it wasn't even in Lofoten. I wasn't even getting full sessions usually because
Hmm.
I was there for 3 or 4 weeks, and the weather was just horrible. It was 18 meters a second of wind every single day, and that was like so. Basically, I'm just trying to find a spot where there's some sort of wind shadow. So I can't paint anything I want anyway. I have to start with these few pockets where there's no wind, and um, and then rain would come, and then if you've got a big one, they're like particularly susceptible to the wind and the rain, and like it doesn't fit under an umbrella, and then if it's windy, the umbrella doesn't even work anyway. So it was those are a bit more like I'd have to keep going back and just sort of whenever I'd get the chance, and it was overcast, I'd just go back and just try and get any time on it.
I, I'm being very selfish here because I've wanted for the longest time to talk to you about this, and just go like, freaking how, man? Like I'm looking. I've looked at your paintings for years and years, through this tiny little screen, zooming in and just going like, what kind of mark am I seeing? It's like it's an approach that I've just never seen before. So the the
It's
the
really nice to hear. It's really nice to hear. Thank you.
well, I do mean it. I really mean it. But I will just say on the wind side of things, I mean, you're painting that's got to be like a 24 by 36 canvas. Looking at it, like that's a massive thing. So you go windsurfing with that thing. So, but to cover that amount of ground and that size, like what's your approach to brushes, to fibers, and even to medium and stuff to because you would have to create a flow. Am I assuming, to cover ground
Yeah,
quick?
yeah. Usually just turpentine with a bit of liquid or some or alkyd medium at the start.
Mhm.
Um, just because like when I'm especially if it's one when I'm traveling, I want it to dry. Yeah, I don't want wet paintings everywhere. Um, but that's okay. If I can come back the next day, then I can be like really juicy or sloppy on the first day with lots of turpentine and dripping and whatever. Because if
Mhm.
I'm coming back, then I know I can sharpen everything up, which I like. I like everything sharp.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, just to make sure, I'd sort of would start usually really thin to make sure everything's like what do they use in photography? It's like the white point is right and the black point is right, and then the
Mhm.
color.
A histogram?
Yeah, like what do you call it?
A
Histogram.
histogram? Yeah.
Yeah,
Is that
like
what
if
you
all
mean?
those things. Yeah, I'm just thinking like that. It's the right brightness. It's not too dark, not too
Mhm.
light, and then
Mhm.
it's not too purple or not too green or what it like. If every, that's usually my first interest is to get everything like balanced properly before I sort of invest too much in painting anything detailed that I would then have to change because it's not balanced properly.
Wow.
So if I do it really thin, then it's sort of easy to paint over, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it totally does. It totally does. I mean, there's something to be said for liquid too, and your ability to layer quickly. I use that stuff all the time, and I'm so fond of it. A lot of people kind of shun the use of alkyd resins. You know, a lot of purists out there, but I think it's absolutely brilliant, especially for that ability to layer. Well, I really hope you're enjoying this conversation with Nicholas O'Leary. Just a quick moment, I need to tell you about this podcast sponsor, Rosemary & Co. Brushes. Have you been looking for the perfect brush to help bring your vision to life? I didn't know I needed these brushes until they actually showed up, and I started using what I found out the pros were using. As soon as I got my hands on Rosemary & Co., it opened me up to another dimension of painting. I started exploring more than just bristles. I started exploring all these amazing synthetic brushes. Some of my favorite are the Ivory, the Evergreen, the Eclipse, and the Shiraz. And I'm using a wide range to get a whole series, a whole range of different techniques. This really has opened up another dimension of oil painting for me. But they don't just make oil painting brushes, they also make acrylic brushes and watercolor brushes as well. Find out why Rosemary & Co. are the best paintbrushes in the world. Visit rosemaryandco.com. That's rosemaryandco.com and get your hands on the best brushes, the gold standard in brushes today. All right, thanks so much for allowing this little interruption. Let's get straight back into our conversation with Nicholas O'Leary. I'm gonna pull up one more painting here, Nicholas, just because it kind of creeps me out, but I'm fascinated by it as well. This painting called Gesture, mixed media collaboration with Kvant-1. Tell me about this painting. Like it's kind of spooky, but really cool. Um, we don't have to get into the meaning behind it or anything, but this is just for the people listening. It's three figures. They seem to be somewhat deconstructed in places, almost anatomical or skeletal. Three female figures, it looks like, over a light lavender background. The color shouldn't work at all, but it totally does. It's just so tell me about a collaboration with Kvant-1. Who is Kvant-1?
That's that's actually like the sort of the design company that I sometimes do work for.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
they're that's so they do lots of 3D stuff there. So that was mixing paint and 3D software, like scanning in bits of paint and it was just basically an experimentation process to see. I thought it could work. It ended up being quite difficult, but I think they were cool. I think they were really cool outcomes, those. I mean, I'd like to get that stuff more into my painting after I did the paint. Like, that's sort of like basically a digital product at the end of the day.
Right.
But I'd like to get some of that language in. I thought that language was just so nice at the end.
Well, the three dimensionality in those thighs, in the pelvis, around the chest, the ear, the head, the turn, and the pose. Like it's really spooky. It's really lifelike, but at the same time, you're looking at it going, yeah, it shouldn't be right. There's something. It's kind of, what do they call it in AI now? And they used to in movies with a lot of three dimensionality, that creepiness, that uncanny valley.
Yeah, that's it.
Where it triggers something in you psychologically, where you're like, I don't know about this. Like it's getting a little bit too realistic, and it shouldn't be.
Yeah, that actually, it's funny you said that. That was the goal, the uncanny valley. I'd seen examples of the uncanny valley, and I was like, oh, it's so like I just it's so enchanting in a way. That that's so like that's it's so disturbing, but it's also just so like you just can't look away.
Hmm.
That's
Hmm.
what I wanted. Like I almost wanted the work. I mean, I'd love that for like pure painting work as well, if it was disturbingly disgusting but beautiful at the same time. But that's a long way to go.
So speaking of uncanny valley, like we see this now, and more and more, the better AI gets at creating images. We see this with so much AI generated art, which at first like can be really like, I find it just, there's something about it that draws me in. As soon as I find that it's AI, though, I cut it and I look at something else. But what's your take on what's happening now with artificial intelligence and image generation? Is this something that you're a little bit more lenient towards, or is it something that you're also pushing away? Like, what's your take on things, and where art's going in that certain respect?
I don't really pay much attention to. I don't pay as much attention to everybody else as everybody else. I don't think. I
Hmm.
don't know what everybody else is doing. Is everybody else using AI?
I'm not. A lot of people that I talk to aren't, and it does seem to be really divided. You're either for it and a little bit's okay, or you're really for it, or you're just like, no, this is worst thing ever. I think I would fall into the worst thing ever camp, but I don't know if I'm necessarily open. I'm just curious at what other artists, and this certainly isn't a judgment on any artist that might be using it in places here and there. I've just made that call for myself, but I'm just so I'm curious about what other artists are thinking towards this, because I really feel like regardless of where we sit on the issue, it's absolutely unprecedented. It's unprecedented. And for some artists to go, oh, it's just a tool like photography, I don't really think so. I think this is a complete paradigm shift, you know? So,
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, I don't use references anyway. I mean, I do everything from life pretty much. On the very rare
amazing.
occasion, if it's a commission or something, then maybe I have to. But I don't even. I have this laptop that I'm talking to you on now, which is from 2016, and
Amazing.
I mean, it hardly even starts. So I just don't even. It's not something that I'll be doing. But I have played around with it on proper machines,
Mhm.
uh, but not for art stuff, just to play around with it. And it is, I mean, it's really impressive. It's insanely impressive.
Mm.
I know that there's lots of people critiquing it, saying that, oh, it doesn't have the soul, but uh, I don't know. It's pretty freaking good. Um, the one concern that I would have is if I'd look back on myself 10 years ago, I think I would have used it to cut corners, and I don't think I really don't. I just don't like cheating. I mean, I don't like cheating at all in anything, actually. And I think that's probably the one reason why I wouldn't use it. And I hardly use references as well.
Right. So you see it as
And
cheating.
I actually had a talk. We had like a murder mystery party last night, and the guy next to me was talking about Sudoku. And I don't like I'm not very good at Sudoku. I mean, when it gets to the difficult, easy, medium, and difficult, when it gets to the difficult one, then I'm struggling. But I don't like writing the little notations down
Mhm.
because I think it's cheating. I want it to be like a beautiful page in the book where I've done it somehow miraculously without writing the notations.
Mhm.
And I always thought you weren't meant to write the notations because the squares are quite small. So they would have made the squares and the pages much bigger if they meant for you to write notations. But this also happens with almost everything I do. That I know, uh, like when I was renovating, like just everything that's behind the walls that you can't see will still be like, I want a mitre joint in there. Everything needs to be like perfect, just because I want to know that I've done my best job on it, and that everything's done properly and honestly. Um, so I probably, when it comes to AI, I probably wouldn't do it just because I'd get that ick feeling. I mean, I don't even use photos because I get that icky feeling that I may be taking a shortcut. It may be good for the short term, but it's probably not good for the long term. And I think AI would definitely be good for the short term, and probably definitely bad for the long term development of an artist. I would think. I mean, if it was an artist that was like me, it would be.
Hmm.
Probably for someone who's making lots of really creative, it's probably much better
Yeah.
because it's can just churn out really cool things. And I think with good curation, it's incredible.
It's interesting what's happening now with text to video prompting. Have you seen any of that?
Yeah, yeah, that's really fun to watch. I love it.
Oh, it's
And
insane.
the mashup music stuff as well. So good.
Some of them are just downright scary, man. Some of these reels that are popping up now on Instagram and various places, they're getting a bit freaky. How one thing can turn into something else. It's like a bad dream coming real. Yeah. I
Yeah,
appreciate
it's
I
lots of skateboarding ones. It's lots of skateboarding ones with me. People, people just like an old grandma skateboarding, and it'll just be weird, very strange morphing shapes.
I'll tell you what, those grandmas though, they can really shred when they get on a
Hell
skateboard.
yeah. Seen the proof.
Okay, so I love that. You're working from life. That's really cool. So how then does a piece like Rain Homage come to be? This speaking of shape design, color design. Oh, good night, dude. Like what a beautiful image. I'll you know the painting obviously, but I'll sh y- you're right. You know the painting obviously here, but let me just share it with you here. Um, how did this is this a commission? How did this one come to be?
Yeah, yeah, that was a commission. Um, it was years ago. What date does it say?
20
2012 or something?
27 it's 2017 you've got on
Oh,
here.
2017. Okay. But there was a few paintings that people really liked, which was this. There was another one like in the rain of these these same houses actually,
Hmm. Hmm.
um, and it was so popular that people just were hounding me. Well, I mean, for how many people usually contact me, it felt like people were hounding me about this painting.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
I like tried to do another one that was in the same world as it, and and I'd sort of like sketched out, and I took some photos of people in this some yellow raincoats,
Hmm.
some of my friends, and then, but again, it was quite planned, and I just had so much control during the process of doing a painting like this
Hmm.
because I also didn't want to I wanted to make sure I didn't screw anything up, I guess. That I was almost during the process of it, I was like, oh, it would be quite nice to be finished actually with this painting. Would be the best. That's the bit I'm looking forward to, is just being finished. So I think that is a is a bit of a reason why I don't really do anything like that anymore.
Fair
I mean,
enough.
I know I mean I like the paintings, but I think it just was a bit. I just wasn't that challenged by it. So now I like to like have the challenge on the main painting with lots more risk involved.
Hmm.
And it's like taking much more like bold choices. Like I like these painters like Zorn and Sargent who do like, you can see that there's a lot of bravado.
Hmm.
And I
Hmm.
know I like them more than a painter that would be like Vermeer, who would be very carefully putting in all these little details. So I've like decided, and I'm like, I think they just, I mean, obviously, like when you see the etchings by Zorn, that these guys just go hard at it on the fly. So I'm just going to do what they do. Well, I'm going to try to work in the method that they do, which seems to be like doing things, making these decisions on the fly, um,
Mm.
rather than being too planned. Uh, which I
Mm.
think like people like you recognize that I mean, most people, a lot of lay people would like those old paintings of mine from years ago much better than my new stuff. So it's nice when people like you say you like the new stuff. You haven't said you like the new stuff better than the old stuff, but it's nice when you say you like the new stuff. A lot of people say, why aren't you doing good stuff anymore? Which is like, which is also heartbreaking. But it is just, the good stuff is just lots of hours. And
Hmm.
I mean, I guess you could say it's like, yeah, but people like details and to see the sweat, I think, as well.
I personally, it's not so much the details that I'm drawn to in your work. It's shaped as it's design. It's design straight up. So it's line and shape. It's your tonal. It's your value arrangement, and your choice of color. Okay, so I'm going to pull up this other painting done in 2018 called Thunder, 145 by 85 centimeters. And speaking of like
Yeah,
contrast of light against dark, dark against light, and this depth that you've created with this L-shaped composition here, it's just absolutely stunning. So, would you consider this like your old stuff? To me, that's still recent years,
yeah,
but is old stuff for you?
yeah, yeah.
Okay, okay,
I had a plan. I had a plan.
yeah.
I had a
So,
plan, and then I executed that plan.
okay, so this was this also a commission?
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Uh, there was a commission for a few paintings, and then I just did more and
Hmm.
said they could choose which one they wanted. So I don't think they picked this, and then I think I just sold it to somebody else.
Hmm. Hmm.
But yeah, it was sort of like done on the as a potential, like yeah, a potential commission in a way, I guess you could say.
Well, I love it. So why don't you paint like this anymore, Nicholas? Sorry, I'm kidding. I had to get that in there. Okay.
But I mean,
Look.
I do like it, but it's just that I know that I don't know. I don't know. It's not as fun to do.
Hmm.
I've decided that, yeah, I really decided, like I said at the start, that I want it to actually be just purely natural. Like if I wasn't selling anything, what would I just sit down and do? And I wouldn't sit down and do that, like intense detail work.
Right.
I'd do the things which is like more playful, I think. Or
Give.
things that are like,
Mm-hmm.
especially finding these things that no one else does, or trying to paint like nobody else does,
Mm-hmm.
or just uh, exploring around or trying new mediums. This is what I enjoy.
Yeah. So can you give me an example of what's your favorite painting that you've ever done? Do you have a favorite or something that you really appreciate about something that you've done in the past? Like point me in the direction of something that you think represents this search and this playfulness that you're exploring now.
That big grey tree, the one that was called like Newgoodsbakken,
Hmm.
that big willow tree, that's one of the ones that I've sort of held on to.
Hmm.
Um, that one I quite like. And there's a few others that actually that are. I know when I did, I can't remember what it's called. Is it called like Winter Light or something? It's a tree in the in sort of like a sunsetish light.
Um, Winter Sun.
Yeah, Winter Sun. There'll be it.
Oh, that's
That one.
stunning.
I know when I did that, I was like, I stopped painting for like quite a few 6 months after, because I thought that now it's finished. That this that I'd done it. This had done all the things that I wanted to do. I was like, okay, this was it. Now I've kind of like clocked my own game. This was exactly what I've been after for like a few years. Was this?
Oh,
And I didn't know
wow.
what to do. I didn't know what to do anymore. I wasn't. I mean, I don't like just repeating the same thing that I've done. So I was like, no, I'm finished. Just did it.
How interesting. So, what brought you back? How come you decided you weren't finished?
Um, I also tend to get bored with
Hmm.
visual styles. Like I could never get a tattoo, and I get bored with I get bored with other artists on Instagram if they pump out the same stuff. Then I'm going to unfollow them, and they haven't. I mean, they potentially haven't done anything wrong. They're doing better stuff, but they're just not moving fast enough for me, for my changing taste. Um, so, and I'm quite critical on myself and probably on others behind closed doors to myself. Um, but yeah, I like to. I mean, it is like this sort of this language that we're passionate about. So I do like to taste new things, if you know what I mean.
Hmm.
When it
Hmm.
comes to this, yeah, this art.
Hmm. Well, look, I mean, the painting is absolutely beautiful. The more you look at it, the more there is to see in there. And again, I'm brought back to your choice of color. The color arrangement in here is just poetry. And again, I'm sorry, I don't want to gush here on the podcast, but I have to. It's just the color is so good. I'm seeing complementary opposites used in such a subtle, tasteful way, but it just creates this vibration between your warms and your cools. Cheeky little bit of cobalt teal there, maybe I'm seeing a little bit.
It is
Yeah,
exactly
man.
cobalt teal.
Dude, I love that color. I love that color. Can you run me through what you're using? Does your palette change, or do you find that your approach to color is pretty standard across a range of works?
It's usually if someone gives me some paint, then
Okay.
I'll try it out, and then I could. It's probably just if it happens to be part of a good painting, then I
Mhm.
keep using it and think that it's probably this color that's the reason. So I usually tend to accumulate and shift out colors just very happenstancely.
Mhm.
But I'll keep the same. Usually, I'd be keeping the same palette from last time. Then I'd use the same one this time. I almost never. Or maybe the only thing that I sometimes wouldn't put on would be like a bright yellow if I was doing a portrait, just because I sort of realized I never even dip into it.
Mhm.
Or maybe even that cobalt teal, like if it's, I'd always put it down there on my palette for a landscape. How often I actually use it, probably. I try to actually. I'm making an effort to try and squeeze it in. I'd say that cobalt teal rather than naturally using it. I'd be like, I just love that color. I'm just gonna. Is there any moss anywhere that's sort of like a really light, vibrant green?
Yep.
Yeah, and the pinks. I'm really into the pinks. After that horse one, or even sort of a bit before that horse as well. I was like, oh, I'm really into pink right now. I'm just gonna like just squeeze it in wherever I can.
Brilliant. Brilliant.
But the thing that I'd say when you said like, what is it now? What is it that brought me back? I actually think it was the sort of like every Monday I just go to this local life drawing club or sessions where they just have like 5 minute or 1 to 20 minute life draw croquis. Um, what do you call it? Where they stand there
Posing.
posing, and then lots of the that doesn't feel like it's this. That's never felt like it was the same game to me. The drawing
Hmm.
and the painting.
Hmm.
They'd always been two separate worlds. I'd never really been that into drawing, to be honest, ever. Even at architecture school, I wasn't really into drawing. I'd sort of just went just straight to painting, and then so eventually, yeah, through the years, the last few years, I've got the life drawing, it's like just having pure line work without sort of smudging around charcoal, just the pure line work. There's something that I enjoy with a very few of the drawings I do. There's very seldomly there'll be something about, oh, that's like, if only you could get this into painting. And then that's when I looked at that one. I was like, oh, it's probably not that good of a drawing, that painting. It'd be nice to come. And so that's sort of been my new driving force now. I almost never achieve. I mean, I'm not even anywhere close to achieving it, but I feel like it's the crossover of these two worlds, trying to get them to meet, the drawing and the painting.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, figure drawing doesn't necessarily needs to be a figure painting, but it was like a way that sometimes the line work would come out that I thought was like particularly beautiful, or like even like drawing a figure and drawing no silhouettes, or almost no silhouette, none of the, like, drawing an arm without drawing any of the outline of the arm, like doing
Wow.
things in like just a weird way. It's like something that I would just always be trying to do these things at life drawing,
Mm.
because it's sort of no pressure, or draw with my left hand, and these things like, oh, sometimes are just so cool. I just gotta see how far I can get it.
That's so fascinating because that really, I mean, I'm starting to kind of just see a little glimpse of why and maybe a little bit of the how you do what you do. It's this playful, experimental, brave kind of search. Dude, you're just having a good time with this, and it seems like you're throwing stuff up against the wall to see what sticks. And there's certain stuff that stick in here, and I don't know. Maybe I'm oversimplifying it a little bit, but this playful approach just seems to be coming through here, and again, I feel like it's just resulted in these images that, to me, nobody's painting like this today. It feels unique. It feels really unique. I mean, if they are, I just don't know about them. But
That's really nice to hear. When I see people, when I find something that's similar to mine, I'm like, ugh, I got to change now. I didn't realize I didn't realize there was somebody else doing it. It is definitely the playfulness, but also the cross pollination between. That's also like one of the parts that's particularly inspirational to me. It would be like the cross pollination of the different mediums and subjects.
mm-hmm.
So I think you can get, like, when I've done like wood carving, suddenly like the next paintings all had lines in them, or they'd all have like a line along the outside. Then the perpendicular lines would all stop inside the silhouette line, because that's what you do in woodcut. So it'd be lots of things that's always and then it can just like build on itself and build out every time you add a new bow arrow to your quiver.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I'm just immediately I just pulled up this okay, again, one of your older ones, but this image of departing bodies, 2014. So that's an example of one of the older works. It's well, it's spooky, but it's really amazing looking. Wow, incredible. So it seems to be that there's a lot more color, generally speaking, in a lot of your newer works. I'm curious. Let's riff on a different aspect of this, Nicholas. I could just geek out about your work all freaking day and ask you all about it, but I'm curious as to, like, what's your take? Because obviously, it's great to sell. It's great to experiment. It's great to remain as honest and authentic in your creative practice as possible. But what is it that you find, like, have you got anything that you've found has worked for you in particular, just when it comes to art from a business standpoint and being able to sustain yourself? I mean, I understand you have your architecture and design thing going as well, but nowadays, is it more and more full time for you? And what are some things that you've picked up that have helped you kind of make this work, even if you're just selling, every now and again, but what's kind of worked for you?
Well, I think people are starting to um, appreciate like the whole me nowadays, which
Hmm.
it's taken a while for them to do. Before it was like people really liked these paintings, like this one of the yellow raincoats,
Hmm.
um, but they hated figure drawings or I don't know. And it starts to, I feel like there's starting to be some collectors and fans that are um, seeing the world of my work,
Hmm.
and that's quite enjoyable actually, because I did come to one point and I was like, if I'm not actually going to really enjoy it, I enjoy doing other stuff too.
Hmm.
I enjoy actually probably almost every job I've ever had. I've actually quite enjoyed, except working at checkout. I don't enjoy working at checkout, but every other job I've always thought was quite fun. Like I'd quite like to be a plumber, an electrician. I think would be quite fun. That seems like problem solving.
Hmm.
So I was like, if I'm not really into this, I'm not going to take the one that pays way less, and I'm going to have an obviously poorer quality of life if I'm a painter, if it's not really really fun.
Hmm.
So I was like, then I'm only going to do it just exactly what I want to do, and then if nobody likes it, then so be it. Then I'll do something else. Otherwise, I'm not just going to do something which I don't like doing if I'm doing it to satisfy other people for low pay,
Hmm.
because there's lots of things I do like doing that get high pay or higher pay.
I love that. I mean, that's
But yeah,
that's authenticity right there, isn't it? I love that.
yeah, but it seems like people are sort of starting to like the whole thing now, which is really nice. And it's been like it does feel like what I always wanted to do was just keep it playful, and even on like I don't know if you've noticed, but my social media, I feel like I actively try to be unserious as much as I can to
Yes.
take away this like stigma of like stuck up artists or something. So I try to take away just make it like it's a child is in control.
I'm gonna at that point right now, I'm gonna cut into the video version of the podcast a couple of your reels that you've posted to Instagram so people can see exactly what you're talking about. And these are the reels that really, if I'm honest, they ticked me right off because I thought finally he's gonna give us his secrets of how he does these extraordinary paintings. And no, you just didn't deliver there at all. You delivered something else. But it's that was really good, really funny. But no, I appreciate that. I mean, that again, that's authenticity right there. But what you're describing, I mean, it seems like you've kept doing this, and your authentic crowd, for lack of a better word, has shown up. And when you're authentically being you, genuinely exploring the thing that makes you tick, the people that want to, again, for lack of a better word, consume that, then that it makes sense. And what better way than social media, right? You can follow who you want to follow, and if you don't want to follow them, you can unfollow them.
Yeah,
So keep
yeah,
doing
that's
your
exactly
thing.
it. Yeah, and it has been a lot of actually. It was always a lot of artists that were really supportive. Actually, to be honest, there'd be a
Hmm.
lot of artists following me rather than lay people,
Hmm.
which was amazing. Like when I'd see that someone like you was following me, like oh my god,
Oh, stop.
go and brag to somebody, and they'll be like, I don't know who that is. You're like, oh, he's a really big deal, you know.
Who?
Yeah, but I
That's
mean
hilarious.
that was always it's so amazing to see, uh, like people that you look up to are also like lurking there in the backgrounds.
I've been lurking for a while. I'm one of the lurkers, definitely.
Yeah,
I've just pulled up this. I keep looking at your website, just keep going from image to image, just going like while the podcast, while we're doing this conversation, just going wow, wow, wow. Like this one that I pulled up, your greens in this painting called Twigs 50 by 30 centimeters, 2020. Extraordinary. That's really, this is fun. Look
Wait,
at this.
what does it look like?
This one here.
Oh, yeah, that's nice. I like that as well.
So cool.
That
Nice
that
to
would,
hear you say that's nice. I like that. Like a lot of artists, they won't say that about their own work. I like that you did. That's because it's extraordinary. It's extraordinary. How do you know, like, have there been paintings that you've done, like right away where you're just like, I'm hating this? What does artistic frustration look like for you? And how do you get around that? Does someone like you ever have a creative block, for instance, where it's hard to just get moving?
yeah, I'm much less productive than everybody.
Right.
I do hardly anything. I can go like 6 months or a year with doing nothing, and then I can like after I'd been to this Lofoten Islands where it was really windy, then I didn't paint for a year afterwards because I was just over it, completely over it. And I tried a few times and I just didn't. I'd like put a few lines in it, but I just can't be bothered. Don't even want to do it. And then, but I knew like probably if you speak to Freeman White,
Hmm.
I've painted with him a few times and he sees me. He's always trying to convince me not to scrub my canvases down.
Right.
Because if we go out painting, I'm like, no, I'm going to scrub it down and keep my canvas. I don't want it. Sometimes it convinced me to keep it.
Well,
So,
good on you, Freeman.
but yeah, I always sort of have this goal of getting 2 out of 3 as well. Like if I'm hitting everyone on the head, then I'm not progressing fast enough. So like 1 out of 3 should be I should be shooting a bit too high, is what I think.
So you're actively stretching. You're striving for something here. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah. But if you like fail like 3 out of 3, or if you fail like 3 times in a row, then you feel really shitty.
Oh, I see. Failing 3 times. Yeah,
Or
right.
like making a
Yeah.
painting which I don't think works.
Mm.
So that would have been even. I know when I first started moving closer, deeper and deeper into the forest painting as well, that was something I felt was very difficult to do. I
Hmm.
started high on a mountain where you can look far away, which I feel is quite easy because there's not
Hmm.
much. You just have to hit a few colors and basically do any shape you want because it doesn't really matter. Nobody knows.
Hmm.
And then like the more and more you get into really complex things with moving light, then it would be really, really difficult. And I know that I tried a few times to go into the forest and it didn't work. And I'd be like, oh, I'll wait a few paintings and I'll come back, go back again. Couldn't do it. And then eventually, years later, I could do it.
I'm just yeah, again, I'm looking at your web. I'm sorry. This probably like for the listener listening to this, they're probably going, this is just a complete selfish opportunity for me to finally meet you and geek out about your work because I've just been wanting to ask you for so long about this stuff. But the thing is that, you know, what this conversation has reminded me of is that authentic pursuit and pushing it, pushing and pushing, because I find that myself I get into a, as much as I talk about how this is a bad idea, I do find myself getting in that pattern of repeating, well, the same pattern over and over again. You know, you put something out there, you get a positive feedback, it sells. That's normally a fantastic positive feedback, right? And then you repeat. It's like, oh, that sold. What's selling? Oh, crashing waves. Oh, let's do another one. And you slowly move further and further away from that thing that was the driving force behind that initial inspiration. And as much as I try to veer away from that, it ends up creeping in the most subtle ways. But then you suddenly turn around, it's like, oh, far out, I'm here again. And so this is
But you
reminding
must
me
like it
to,
though.
oh, dude, there's always something I could find to love about anything that I'm painting. And teaching's been a really interesting one as well for this. There's always something to love, but when I'm thinking about the overall trajectory and the bigger journey, this has been such a nice reminder of maybe getting a little bit more playful, a little more experimental. Because to be honest, there's some paintings that I have in my head that I've been afraid to start. It's like, no, that would be too weird. No, I'm just going to do it then.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, you probably haven't come up with an idea that you felt was too weird, right?
Nah. But the one I know the ones that I in my head I mean it's not an actual visual. I know what
Mhm.
I want. It's in this uncanny valley world,
Mm.
but I can't. I've tried a few times and I can't do it. But I know that's how I want to get there somehow. I just need to figure out how to do it.
Hmm. Hmm.
But I think actually on that last note where you said that you don't often meet a painter that or an artist that says they like their own, say they really like their own work,
Mm.
I mean, it sounds so freaking arrogant.
No,
But
it's great. Not at all.
the only reason I feel like I'm doing it, I mean, if there was an artist that was making the work exactly as I liked it, someone who likes does brushstrokes this way instead of that way, that's what I like, then there wouldn't really be a need for me in a way.
Mm.
So I'm only doing it in like kind of service to myself. Uh, and like my main goal with the paintings as well is to have them on my own wall. And
Hence
then when I
this
get s-
beautiful
and
background we see behind you.
yeah, and then when I get sick of sick of them, I'll sell them.
Okay.
But when often I like I just can't put them on my website for a while because I know that someone could potentially buy it then.
That's so cool, man. That's really interesting. I love that. I absolutely love that.
But I mean, it's the most arrogant response. I've heard other people talking about like, bringing joy into the world and inspiring people, and I'm like, just just do it for myself and hoard them all in my house.
But no, well, how about this? I think that's actually probably one of the most unselfish things that you could do, and one of the least arrogant things that you could do. I mean, the purpose of art, in a way, is genuine exploration, genuine, authentic exploration, which is something that you are engaged in, and we can all see it from the outside looking in. And what that's done, well, just for me, okay, I'll just speak from my perspective here. What it's done for me is it's inspired me to pick that up and have a go. And that's going to manifest in a completely different way. When authenticity is ignited within somebody, they can't help but be an individual. And so by you going, no, this is what I want to do, and I actually quite like it. And you know what? I'm going to keep the painting. There's a few paintings that I've done that, okay, yes, they were more of a personal nature, but I will never part with them or sell them. Like I've got one portrait that I did, for instance, which was of a gentleman named Tuhoy, um, and he's got the full face tattoo, Maori face tattoo, and
Oh, I've seen this. I've seen this.
yeah, it's one
It's
it's
like
my
really Goldie like, right?
dude. I love Goldie,
Is
and
it one that's yeah,
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 yeah.
that's
And
really cool.
I wanted to I wanted to paint. I wanted to have a Goldie. I wanted to own a Goldie, but I don't have Goldie money. And I was thinking, well, maybe I could just paint one. And so I really painted it for me. And I know him. And he came to the studio one day and I was photographing him and I thought, dude, if you wouldn't make the best Goldie knockoff ever, I'm just gonna have a go at this. And now I own it. And it's like it's on my wall. It's not for sale. I've had offers for that painting and it's like, nope, that's my painting. So I get it, man. I get it. But this has been just such a nice reminder to stay in that lane, right? And play the authentic game. That's cool. What a
You
treat.
shouldn't. You should. You need to stay in your lane. You're doing much better than me. I'd say the international superstar and Andrew Tischler.
I,
Don't take it as advice.
I'm gonna barf. I'm gonna barf. That's funny. Well, earlier, by the way, I'll set this up because you were saying something about wanting to ask me stuff. I'm happy to go ahead and put some of that in the podcast. Go ahead, ask away. Why don't we throw it in here? What were some of the things you were wanting to ask me?
It was more personal stuff. It was more like these. Yeah, it's seen you
Let's do
gone
it.
on painting trips with some of the other Kiwis. Um,
Yep, yep.
and I was wondering, I was just like, where is everybody? Where are all the other Kiwis based? Are they in
Okay.
Wellington, or are they in the South Island, or are they in Hawke's Bay?
Well, this is the thing that that I've thought for some time, which is really you're probably a bit like me, where you're looking at the like at this outside world, and it's like there's this great party happening, and it's like, hey, what are you guys doing? Y'all having fun? Can I, kind of thing. I feel like that, man. I feel so like that. I feel like there's like I mean, particularly, I just watched a little video the other day, which was a tribute to the great Richard Schmidt, there was the Putney Painters, and there were people there. There was like I saw Eric Rhodes there. There was Daniel Keyes, Michelle Dunaway, Jeremy Lipking, Scott Burdick dropped into the studio, like the who's who, and like all these big names. And I was like looking at him, going, "Oh, that looks like fun. Can I come play, guys? Can I can I come too?"
Oh
Kind of
yeah.
thing. Here in New Zealand, like we're I think we're blessed here in New Zealand. We got a great bunch of painters, and a lot of people that really love to paint plein air as well. And so I I've gotten the opportunity to paint with a few of them. There's a great crew now based in Wellington. The Died, shout out to Died Studios. Died, I learned on the last trip, was an acronym for Do You Even Draw? Which was really, really cool. But there's, of course, Amit, forgive me, Amit, I forgot the last name. I'll include links to this in the description. But Sam Balzar, Clark Raworth, and Ben Delabarca as well. So a great bunch of painters are there, and I know Freeman's painted with those guys a couple of times as well. Freeman White, of course, he's amazingly talented and doing so much. But yeah, I don't really get to do it that often. I'm just kind of hanging out here in the studio doing my own thing, you know, and I don't really get out that much. It would be it'd be great to get out painting. I'm going to go plein air painting again with a friend of mine who's a drummer and used to have a cafe, but he just wants to paint. So I'm gonna teach him some plein air. My buddy Mike. So yeah. But yeah, I'm really just doing my own thing here, man.
Yeah.
I'm
I mean, yeah.
based in a town that there's no one here in the town. It's a really quiet town, 400 people where I am, down at the bottom of the South Island. Yeah,
Oh damn.
yeah,
Is
yeah.
it?
So
Where is it? In Invercargill? Below Invercargill?
no,
No.
no, above
Yeah.
Invercargill, I'm between Dunedin and Queenstown in a town called Lawrence.
Okay.
Yeah, in the Clutha gold fields, so the old gold district. So this was at one point Lawrence's claim to fame is this was at one point going to be the capital of New Zealand. It used to have a population of 11,000. It was bigger than Dunedin, and then
Yeah.
they found a ton of gold here. And a lot of gold. Like there was so much gold coming out of this one creek that is just, down the gully from us here, about, 500 meters from the studio, and it was a massive operation, and it became fabulously wealthy, and then the gold seam dried up and everybody vanished, but now there's just a remnant farming community here of 475 people around that. It's a great little town, though. It's brilliant. There's a supermarket, a petrol station, and a cafe, and if you're driving through, you blink, you miss it.
Hey, do you live anywhere near that? There's this bike track where you bike along a railway line from
Yeah, that's
like.
the Clutha Gold Rail Trail. Yeah, that goes through the town. Yeah, yeah.
I'm going on that in
When?
the summer,
This summer?
after Christmas sometime. Yeah, yeah. I'll come visit then
Bro, come to
if
the
you're there.
studio. Yeah.
Yeah,
Where are
yeah.
you
I'll
starting your
find.
where are you starting your bike ride?
Is it Queen? Does it bring start in Queenstown?
There will
Does
be
that sound right?
some of it in Queenstown. Yeah. Look, have a look
I
at
think
your
it
I
takes like 4 or 5 days or something, or
Yep,
3 days.
I think you'd be on
Yeah,
that. Have a look at your itinerary, and if you've got space in your schedule, come up. We'll go painting.
yeah, yeah. I'll ask my sister. She's in charge.
Okay. Awesome. Awesome.
See what she says.
But otherwise, if you end up in Queenstown or Dunedin or wherever you end up at one end of your stop, I can always come and pick you up in the truck, and we can go for a paint out for a day or whatever. It'd be cool, man. I would relish the opportunity to paint alongside you. It'd be amazing. And I would
Me.
also,
Yeah, I think we.
I would force you not to scrub the canvas too. I'm going to enforce we'll call it the Freeman White rule. You must keep the painting.
Uh, this is like a reminder of my failures.
Oh,
Yeah.
brilliant. Oh, awesome. Well, Nicholas, I'm looking forward to the opportunity to maybe get to meet you in person, but I just want to say thank you so much. This has been a wonderful way to spend the last hour and a half and finally get a chance to meet you. Thank you so much for being on the Creative Endeavor podcast.
Thank you, Andrew. It was really cool to meet you finally, after hearing your name through the grapevine so much. So yeah, hopefully we'll meet up in person then.
Well, I really hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Creative Endeavor podcast. A huge shout out and thank you to Nicholas O'Leary for joining me. You can find Nicholas on Instagram and on his website. I will include those links in the show notes. Make sure you're following his phenomenal artwork there. I just enjoyed this conversation so much. It's so interesting to hear from an artist that is fully dialed in. I talk to so many artists here on this podcast that are really inspiring, and they have a unique approach. They have a direction. They have something that they're teasing out and exploring. There's just a level to the authenticity that Nicholas is approaching this thing with that I appreciate so much. He's genuinely having a good time with his paintings, and that really comes through the canvas. So if you're not already doing so, make sure you're following his artistic journey on social media and on his website. Now, if you enjoyed this episode of The Creative Endeavor, please do me a huge favor. Leave me a rating or a review on whatever audio platform you're listening on. It makes a massive difference to the show. And while you're at it, please share this on your social media and spread the word with more people. I really appreciate you doing that. Okay, I'm going to get out of here and get back to painting. Thanks so much again for spending this time with me here. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you again in another episode of The Creative Endeavor.